Hello, everyone. My name is Roberta McAfee Robertson of Global Patriots United. We promote a better world by addressing pressing global issues through interviews, event reporting, and music. Under the umbrella of our Better World campaign, the theme for January is Wellness for All. This campaign promotes holistic well-being by advocating for improved quality of life and healthier lifestyle choices. It also aims to raise global awareness on the importance of our overall well-being, emphasizing on the connection between physical, mental, nutrition, and our general community wellness. And today, I do have with me a psychiatrist who I'm going to engage him on a conversation on general well-being, but focusing on mental well-being. He is the director of Accra Psychiatric Hospital, and he is in the person of Dr. Kwadwo Marfo Obeng. Well, thank you. Very happy to partake in this. Yeah, happy to that you guys gave us the chance to make time for us and for us to have this discussion. We are grateful. So there are many definitions of health actually, but I would focus on World Health Organization, which posits that our health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and it is not just merely the absence of diseases. But in your field of work, how do you approach the concept of wellness, and what is the elements that you consider in identifying a person's holistic and mental well-being? Right. So the WHO also has a definition for good mental health, which again is a state of well-being in which an individual is able to achieve their full potential, manage your regular stresses of everyday life, work productively and fruitfully, and make a contribution to their society. Like the definition of health, it's a very high bar that very, very few of us meet throughout the year. At some point in time, the stress is going to be too much for you. You're going to be overly irritable, that sort of stuff. So that's the metric that we use. But if we're talking about wellness, that is a broad church. In the hospital, we tend to focus on illness, which is a small subset of the human experience when all the attempts at wellness have failed and we've fallen ill. But the concept of wellness is becoming extremely more important to particularly the field of mental health. There's a lot of work that can be done to stop people from entering into illness. And it's a lot cheaper to do those things than not to. And what we found is that there's a lot of overlap with your general health, the kind of thing that you need to improve your mental health. And so what's happening now is that the things that your cardiologist will tell you to improve your wellness, the same thing your psychiatrist will tell you. Okay. So for example, sleep. So a lot of mental disorders that can be offset with a reasonable cycle of sleep. If you're giving yourself enough hours in the night to sleep, getting refreshing sleep, you can offset a lot of mental disorders. It's also very good for your heart. Yeah. We talk about diet. Let's just talk about the Mediterranean diet, which is actually just a traditional Ghanaian diet before the West got involved in our diets. Low oil, low salt, high in fruits, high in vegetables, high in whole grains. So essentially, I'm talking about boiled plantain and kudum. Yeah. With some fish in it, you're good. It's a Mediterranean diet, and that has been found to be independently very, very useful in prevention of depression and anxiety. Yeah. So watching what you eat can affect your mood. Yeah. There's a lot of correlation between gut health and mental health now. So if you're eating well, the likelihood that you are mentally well is higher. The likelihood that you're more productive is higher. Another thing that's become more important to us is exercise. We now incorporate exercise even into treatment of certain conditions like, again, depression, anxiety. Exercise has been found to be able to lift the mood and improve your health. So as a wellness feature, exercise improves your resilience for stress. So if you can do 30 to 45 minutes
a day, 3 to 4 times, 3 to 5 times a week, your likelihood of having a depressive episode or significant anxiety is significantly less than somebody who doesn't do that.
Yeah.
So as you see, I'm talking about a lot of things that your regular GP or your cardiologist will talk about.
Yeah.
What is unique for us is things that are specific to your management of stress. So looking at your day and looking at which elements of your day are causing you stress and looking to eliminate the ones that you can eliminate.
Yeah.
So for example, if traffic is a problem for you, it's impossible for you to wake up earlier so that you avoid the traffic. If your friend is causing you unnecessary anxiety, giving you unnecessary pressure, do you really need to be talking to this friend as much?
Yeah.
Yes. If going on social media is causing you stress, you're comparing yourself to people and their fake best life
Yeah.
on the internet, and that's causing you to have self-esteem issues. Do you really need to be going on social media on the internet that much?
Yeah.
So just taking a good look at your life and what is necessary, what is not necessary, what is helpful to you, what is not helpful to you, and embracing the things that are helpful and letting go of the things that are not. For people who are working, looking at how much work you are doing, whether the work is fulfilling, and how much you actually need to be doing. There are a lot of people who don't take leave when their leave is due, and the people who, when they take leave, they actually go and work somewhere else.
Yeah.
A leave is a very important thing for your mental health. So
Yeah.
take a break from the stress of working and actually relax, embrace your family life, get a good work-life balance going, have alternative interests. But if you take a leave and then you go and do another job, it really doesn't benefit your mental health anyway. So after several months, years, you find yourself getting burnt out, which is not a good state of mental health.
Yeah.
It dawns on me I could keep on answering the question
Yeah.
for the next hour.
Yeah.
I'll stop here.
Yeah. I mean, you did mention about, a balance. I mean, looking at the world order now in terms of work, is this something that is really, really acting now? And what does balance look like?
Hmm. So that's a difficult one. So you're balancing your family life, your professional life,
Yeah.
and your social life. You have a good relationship with your nuclear family. You have a significant other. That's what you're into. You might have children. All of this is taking your time. You have your relationship with your employer, the work that you're doing, the relationship with the workmates, and then you have friends outside of work and your family. Ideally, ideally, it should be such that when you are at work, you are fully at work, you're engaged, you enjoy being with the people that you are with, you are feeling productive, you feel like you're making a meaningful contribution to your company and to your society. And then when you clock out from work, you've clocked out.
Okay.
Work is not following you after you've stopped. 5 o'clock is over, you moved on. Now you are with your family or with your friends, and you're not so tired that you can't engage with your spouse.
Yeah.
You're not so tired that you haven't said I love you or how are you to your husband and to your wife in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Because everybody's just dealing with their feelings. You're not so tired that children making mistakes that they would normally make annoys you and you're overreacting, and your children only know you as that angry guy who comes, everybody has to be quiet and you beat them and then you go to bed. That's not helpful, you know. And when you're not doing that and when you're with your friends, you can be with your friends without your boss calling you, your home boss or your boss calling you, to interfere with this other aspect of your life that you are enjoying. You should be able to embrace this aspect of your life because it's important to have that personal thing that enrich your family and enrich your work.
Yeah.
If you're going to watch football with the boys, at least for that 2 hours, work and home should be your own peace.
So, what are some of the factors that affect a person's mental health?
Ooh, okay. So there are myriad. There's a lot of them. I think one that a lot of people don't consider is genetic.
Okay.
People are born with personalities.
Yeah.
So some people's personalities make them more anxious than usual. I mean, you know these people from their childhood. You know, every little thing they're scared. You know, they're afraid of what if they catch us.
Yeah.
So that predisposes you to things like anxiety or depression later on in life. And then there are the people who don't know the meaning of fear. You know, everything they're willing to go, they're going to go first, and they too they have their own risks of getting other issues. So they're more likely to have things like substance use disorders, because they're more likely to try various substances. You know, they're more likely to try repeat behaviors. So, and a lot of this is genetics. You're born with the risks for certain disorders. And then you have the nature of your upbringing, your childhood. You know, there are certain things that build resilience into a child so that they can manage stress and not have a breakdown. Everything. Sometimes something little happens in their life. You know, so there are little things growing up around a large pool of supported people is better than growing up with a small number of people. Growing up in an environment where you are guaranteed that you understand that you are being loved and that affection is important. You know, so if you look at something like our former system of managing children, nurturing children, where your extended family and your whole village was helping take care of the child. You know, a child, if you're in the clock for a child not to feel love, it's not like you can't even identify who your mother is. You know, auntie is practically your mother. You have forefathers around the house. But we have the situation right now that with one bad mother or one bad father or one deceased parent, it's possible for a child to grow up not knowing what love is, not having proper relationships with a parent or with an adult. And your relationships as a child form the model on which you're going to, all your relationships as an adult are going to be based. So if you don't have stability in your relationship with your parent or with adult, your relationships with your partners are with your people. You know, you're going to be unsure about whether your partner loves you. You know, another aspect of the environment which a child is growing that is important is having a sense of responsibility. You know, having choice to do, being responsible for something. This is your responsibility. If this doesn't happen, and if you don't do this, then this will happen. And when you grow up having those kind of responsibilities, it helps you understand how to interact with the world in a more reasonable way. You understand limitations, you understand where you fit in all those things. Daddy is here, or your uncle is here, you are here, your junior sister is here. You know, again, so when you're in that broad family environment with cousins, with them, there's almost no child that isn't somebody's junior and somebody's senior. You know, that helps a child grow up with understanding of boundaries and responsibility. So you end up people who grow up and they understand rights and responsibility. And they are less emotionally stressed when their boss is asking them to work longer than they have to work, or the world isn't fair. You know, it's important that you learn as a child that the world is not going to be fair. You know, nobody can teach you that better than an elder sibling or cousin who's beating you for no reason. You know, that is going to teach you better than you not being able to report the fact that it wasn't you that did the thing. Because when daddy leaves, the person who you just reported on is going to beat you again. You know, and it's important. But, you know, we're getting a generation of people now who don't understand that the world is not fair. You know, who expect the world to change for them. You know, and you're going to have, and they're genuinely presenting with anxiety disorders and depression. What they're presenting with is genuine, but, you know, for you and I who grew up in a more controlled settings, the reason they are having depression doesn't make sense to us.
Yes, exactly.
You know, because they didn't grow up with the same kind of resilience that we did. So all of these things, I mean, the childhood is very important. And then the decisions you make in your life as to whether you're going to drink or not, drink in moderation, not in moderation, the kind of relationships you entertain in your life. You know, you can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends, and the people choose friends that don't particularly help their mental health. And the professional choices that you make. You know, not everybody's going to enjoy the job they do, but but at least everybody should be able to tolerate the work they do. and I think sometimes it's difficult to ask yourself after dedicating a lot of time and resources to a certain profession that is this the right profession for me, or is this the right workplace for me? So then you keep on at the what's a fallacy of sunk cost. You keep on spending so much more time and energy in a profession that isn't rewarding for you, and that then colors all your experiences with everything else. So there's that, and then there's understanding where you are in your family dynamic also. There are different roles that we play at different points in our life, and we understand where we are in the whole what that narrative of life. It will help us uh, maximize our mental health. So when you are a child, you walk like a child. You don't have to. So when you've done the child, but then you become a young adult. Maybe you get married, you have children. Traditionally, your parents will help you raise your children. Offset a lot of stress, and then there is a lot of stress associated with childbearing. Again, we're moving to this Western model where nuclear families are nuclear families. You take care of your own children. You don't trust anybody else with your children. You spend all your time with your children. So you finish your 9 to 5. Your child finishes their 8 to 5, and then we both come home and do homework for 2 hours. None of you are happy about it. The child eats, baths, and then goes to sleep, and then you repeat. You don't have a life because you're deciding to do all of this yourself, without help. And at this point, typically your parents might be nearing retirement, or they might have retired, or you might have a grandparent, something like that is also bored in their house without anything to do. They need some sort of engagement. They need some sort of life around them, and you're depriving them of the life they could be enjoying with your children. You are depriving your partner of the time you could be spending together as a couple, just so you can do this thing which really somebody else could be doing for you. So it's something to think about how we support each other and allow people to support that, because being parents in a couple of years, they're now going to start getting medical conditions. You're now going to have to take care of them. You're going to have to use your time and your resources to take care of them. So if they are helping you take care of your kids when they're strong, it makes it easier to take care of them when they're not. And they're less resentment. But if this system breaks down, then you end up with a lot more resentment between the generations. Not too petty, but I think I like to be very practical about this, because it's come to a time where we need to be very practical so we know the way forward in terms of the solution to offer. So in a case where, yes, the nuclear family sort of doesn't wish to have that nuclear setting, that you want external help. But here be the case, the external or the parents are equally busy. In your personal opinion, how do you navigate? Because the world is going a certain order. And so if everyone is busy trying to get something that is almost on the table, how do we support each other? That is the challenge, because grandma too is still in town. Exactly. Grandma's still in town. Grandma's still working. So that is an issue as well. But I find that, first of all, it's good to have the conversation in the first place. Sometimes we assume that grandma can't do anything at all because grandma has stated that, your kids are your kids. But at least have the conversation first, and then find a workable solution. Sometimes it could be an aunt that can help, a friend that can help every now and then. But what I'm speaking to is more the idea of finding time for yourself and for your spouse. The idea that it's okay to do some self-care and some couple care. So it might not necessarily be a parent, it might not necessarily be a family member, but not feeling guilty about taking time for yourself and your partner to remember that we love each other outside of it.
That's important, before you can take that self-care. So you can't leave your kid hanging.
Exactly, but I was saying, you find a friend, we have, all of us have different ecosystems around us. So if you're lucky, it might be family. That's convenient. They feel obligated to it. If you're not lucky, it might be a friend that's really close, and you might exchange.
Yes.
We do our date night every third week of the month. You do your date night every second week. You bring me your 3 kids. I bring you my 2 kids.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. Don't with 5 or 6 kids.
Yeah.
That won't be a fair trade.
Yeah, exactly.
But there are systems that you can work around. Find a date to do it. It's just often people just get so stuck in the daily grind that they don't really realize what it's doing to them.
Yeah.
So about taking time and asking yourself, can I offset some of this to someone? And it's the guilt really that I want to speak to. Because a lot of parents feel guilty about not spending more time with their children. They feel guilty about handing their children over to somebody else.
Yes.
And that just sort of keeps you in the same cycle. But then it's not healthy for the marriage.
Yeah.
It's not healthy for the marriage, and it's not healthy. Marriage is not healthy for the kid. The kid that would grow up in a more tense environment that no kid that then would have risk for later on for their mental health.
Yes, I agree. Now, in the same family setting, even in individual, with adolescents, as individuals get into adolescence, aside the physical development and everything, mentally too, their minds expanded. And they seem to show signs of wanting to be alone, having low self-esteem, and all those sorts of things that could lead to depression. How is one able to distinguish between a child who is going through the adolescent stage and a child who is actually having a mental, problem or disorder?
In truth, it's difficult for all of us. It's difficult for all of us because adolescence looks different for everybody. It's a time of change. It's a time of exploration. It's challenging. So what we look out for primarily is dysfunction.
Okay.
So if the child is going through changes, but they're able to function within their family, they're doing everything that you expect them to do. They're able to function professionally. In their case, that's school.
Yeah.
Their grades aren't falling. And they're still relating to people in a way that is not destructive to them.
Okay.
We would give them the space to explore whatever they're exploring. But particularly if it's starting to affect the academics, if you're having an unexplained fall in academic performance, that is a red flag for us in mental health. So you bring that person in for an assessment, and let's just let's be on the safe side. Particularly that. Sometimes a relationship with a mother will change in funny ways, but if the academics are fine, typically things are okay. But it also, if the personality change are not getting them in trouble with the school, they're getting them in trouble with authority figures, then again, it can't hurt to get an assessment done just to make sure everything's fine. But if they're staying within the socially acceptable norms and still affecting their outputs, then you just observe and build that they grow into a better person at the end of all their accreditation.
Okay. So the social aspect will be the major indicator to determine if this is safe, acting out or unsafe acting out.
Yes.
Okay. Great. What is the situation of mental health globally and locally?
So, for the past about decade or so, there's been a lot of attention on mental health and the importance of mental health globally and locally. So a lot more people are thinking about what their mental health means to them, so in Ghana, a lot of people are still stuck on the concept of mental illness as what we used to call madness, psychotic illnesses. So you're looking at people who are dirty on the streets, naked, talking to themselves. That's the concept a lot of people have of mental health or mental illness in this country, unfortunately, still. But it's far from what mental illness actually is. Mental illness, like the definition of mental health I gave for you, if you are not living your best life, you're not mentally well. I'm sure out of between you and I'll say it's me. I'm not currently mentally healthy. You know, I'm stressed. I'm overworked. I'm overdue for a leave. I'm more irritable than I should be. Things are annoying me more than they would if I knew if I had relaxed properly, taken a break. I know this about my situation now, so I'm not mentally healthy as I'm sitting in front of you now. That what more of us need to understand. The scope of mental health is broad. It's broad, and most of us are dealing with something that we could benefit from talking to a mental health professional about. But we are focused on mental health in this small fraction of what we do, which is severe mental illness. We have people who are suffering with anxiety disorders, social phobias, so they can't do your job, for example. They might be very eloquent, they might be very gifted at asking questions, but the second people are looking at them, they freeze out. Their heart is pounding, so on and so forth. This is an illness that's stopping them from achieving their maximum potential. Yours is an extreme example, but even in the workplace, does anybody have a suggestion? You have the best suggestion, but you can't open your mouth to say it because you're overly anxious. That is illness. That is illness. The people who won't take certain jobs because they're afraid of heights. That is illness. There are people who have an irrational fear of spiders. Excessive. There are lots of men who are dealing with depression, people who are dealing with depression, who are drinking away their problems, who are avoiding their families, avoiding their lives, and that is illness. You know, there's a lot of mental illness that is not psychotic in nature, but in Ghana we don't really address that. The real challenge there is that the most impact on our economy comes from non-psychotic mental illness. So people like you and I who are dealing with burnout, who are dealing with anxiety, who are dealing with depression, and we still show up at work, but we don't function at work. We're not giving our 100%. So it's presenteeism. We are dealing with this anxiety or this depression, so then have mental health. So you have all these unexplained headaches, all of these what's called burning temptations on your body. You go to the hospital, they keep on treating you for malaria. They can't find you malaria parasite, but they're treating. The problem is not malaria. The problem is not cough. The problem is that you're dealing with anxiety, you're dealing with depression, but you haven't diagnosed it. And until you do that, you keep on bouncing around from hospital to hospital, not being productive at work. So in Ghana, we need to shift our focus when we're talking about mental illness. We'll talk about the working unwell rather than the people whose lives have been already destroyed by the mental illness. It's important to deal with those people, but it's also important for our economy to be maximized to also deal with more mild forms of mental illness, discussing mental illness. So, I'm happy you mentioned the cost of mental health on the economy. Now, just to mention something, globally it is estimated that 12 billion working days are lost every year to depression and anxiety, and this by WHO. And looking at it from that angle, what in your personal view could be done to reduce this loss in productivity? Well, the first one is always talking about a change of mindset. Yes. To understand that not everything is spiritual and not everything is, physical in terms of physical illness like malaria. Expand your thinking to include the possibility that the person who's not at work or the person who's suffering might be suffering from something mental in nature and seek help. Seek help or let the person seek help. So it's a mindset change that's the most essential thing. And then our corporate structure needs to allow more for mental health training for supervisors. So they can identify when people under them are struggling and they need to be equipped with the skills and with the resources to help people who are struggling. If your supervisor can identify you and we have a reasonable referral mechanism, so you identify someone who's struggling, and then this is the person that you are referring to. That's it. That's good. But there are certain general things that you need to make sure that you can do. Actually, give some thoughts to your employees as human beings. as human beings who have to travel to and from work in the traffic that we have, as human beings who have children who need to go to school by a certain time will be picked up at the certain time, as human beings who have to eat lunch. I talked to you about the Mediterranean diet, but some people by the sheer geography of where they work, they can't access anything healthy to eat for lunch. As human beings who sometimes need daycare, so, and then human beings like to have a say. They like to have some inputs. They need change in their work environment. So, sometimes you have a conversation with your employee when there's only one option, but then the mere fact that you had the conversation allows them to appreciate the fact that this is the only option for you, rather than just shouting the instruction at the person that this is what we are doing, full stop. Then there's still the possibility that something else might have happened, might have had some idea. Sometimes you might even have an idea that can fix your problem for you, but you never actually engage with your employee. So it's about creating an environment where you minimize your employee stress as much as you can, and then having a level of engagement with them that where they feel some ownership in their job, they feel respected in their job, and they feel like their job is actually producing something, it's actually contributing to the company. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's interesting. I think, I mean, to add to that, I think it will be good if we are very, people centric. Yeah. More than profit centric. I mean, yes, we set up businesses for profit, obviously, but at the end of the day, there's still human beings who are doing these work. And when we care about them, we meet halfway. I mean, no, I mean, people centric is profit centric. Typically, yes, eventually, yes. Yeah, a lot of these people end up giving you less output than they would have. Yes. And then sometimes your solution is to fire the person. Then you hire somebody, start training them all over again, using up resources that you didn't have to use up. But if you're applying the same conditions to the second person is eventually going to burn out and have issues too. So you have this high turnover and low productivity. Yes. So, if you don't take care of your human resources well, your human resources can't take care of you well, and then your profits are going to take it. Yes, that's very true. Now, how is mental health? I know we mentioned a bit of the family, but directly or indirectly, how is mental health impacting families and institutions? When I say institutions, not just the schools, but organizations as well. With the families, I'll start again with the broader concept of mental health, where things like anxiety and depression. With families, you're having presenteeism and absenteeism of parents. Parents who are dealing with burnout, who are dealing with depression, are not engaged as a spouse, and they're not engaged as a parent. So it's affecting the family dynamic. It's affecting how happy the whole family is as a structure. Now, if you're dealing with more severe mental illness, kind of psychotic illness that are typically brought here, then that becomes even more destructive to the family structure. So you have people having to take time out of their day to take care of their loved one who's suffering from a mental illness. And for the more severe mental illness, the person that you're taking care of might not even be aware that they're sick. So you have families fighting with people to ensure that they get the treatment they need to be well. So it can be very, very stressful and very, very traumatic for the family. Also, for severe illness, the individual themselves might lose their capacity to work, and then their caregiver might also lose their capacity to work effectively just by the amount of time they're having to spend taking care of the individual that doesn't know they're unwell. Yeah. For organizations, it's affecting organizations that we talk about again with the presenteeism and absenteeism at work. So our output is low. I mean, there can be an argument that a lot of civil servants in Ghana are probably burnt out. They're underpaid. They feel like they're overworked. They feel like they're unappreciated. So sometimes the experience you get when you're dealing with a civil servant, you should feel sorry for the person who's so annoyed. Yeah. This thing where it looks like they're just there to spend their time in the office without actually producing anything. It's a symptom of an unhealthy mental state. And it's affecting our corporates as well. You know, a lot of presenteeism, the lack of drive, lack of motivation to work, and it's affecting our government. It's affecting every level of organizational structure in the country. In that we're not concerned enough with the mental health of the people who constitute the organization. But then severe mental illness is also affecting us. We have a lot of people in civil service who are severely ill, and we haven't really figured out how to manage it well to keep the person productive. So we have a lot of people on the government payroll who are unwell and work like 2 months in a year. Sorts of thing, because they keep on falling sick. So as a country, we really need to sit down and have a conversation about what HR policies to have around people and their mental health to optimize their contribution to organizations, not just the human-centered preventive stuff we're talking about. When it's severe, to how do we manage it in a way that is actually helpful to the individuals. What's your personal view and in generally of other parts of the world who are addressing mental health? What do you think the state is currently? An interesting one. It's an interesting one. I think structurally they have a lot of things that I feel would be helpful for us. So things like employee assistance programs are becoming mainstream in a lot of the first world. So your institution is likely to have some formalized structure of offering you care. Okay. Where I differ with them, and I'm sure this is clear from what I've said so far, is in the approach to child raising. I think their system is raising people without any resilience for the difficulties of life, and it's increasing the burden on their mental health structures. There's this concept of a mental health thing, which is a very, very good concept. You just take a break to take care of yourself when it's necessary. The problem is that if you merge that with young staff that don't have any resilience, what you have are people who are taking mental health day to be the best of the year because they're genuinely stressed, because they generally can't take the stress of the job that they're supposed to be doing. So I wish we could adopt their structures. I wish we could adopt employee assistance programs. I wish we had as many psychologists per population as they do. I wish we had as many psychiatrists. I wish our television content mainstreamed mental health issues the way theirs does, such that people understand what they're going through in a more organic way. It's not all witchcraft and demons and everybody goes ill on TV because they were careful. Once the cat is lifted, they are well. All of these narratives that are unhelpful. I wish we would move to a more honest dialogue about mental health, what we could do about it. But I also wish we wouldn't abandon all our traditional ways of managing our families and managing our children, and then we would have more resilient young people than what they're having in the first world now. Yeah. Great. What can we do to promote awareness of mental health? Well, I mean, what you're doing now is a good step. I think for the last decade or so, we've been very active, talking to people, trying to get the conversation into the mainstream. And I think talking on the media is a big thing. Unfortunately, you often have to pay for carry on the media, and mental health is quite broke, generally speaking. But again, I just touched on it in my last response, but it's a big problem for me is even before I got into psychiatry, there are certain shows that I watched that were helpful in understanding the concept of mental illness. You have several series, several movies in the West where the protagonist might be suffering from schizophrenia, and they'll deal with concepts like poetry, like the person might be hearing, in a way that doesn't make the person care, or the person live the experience, the person is even the protagonist. So you are rooting for a person who's dealing with a mental illness. It's a completely different worldview. Completely different approach to mental illness. But then again, I juxtapose this with Ghanaian cinema, where mental illness is always a curse.
Yeah.
Always a curse. And, it always goes when the curse is lifted. And we don't put much thought in this, but the America started putting age ratings on their movies after Superman.
Yeah.
Because a child climbed to the top of a building and jumped off it.
Yeah.
People learn from television.
Yes.
People learn from fiction. So an American child, a Ghanaian child, knows to dial 911 if there's an emergency. Not because he's seen any promotional or something by the American police, but they put it in every movie they do so that they're educating their population, and when something happens, dial 911.
Even to the point of, can hear you think dialing the police is 911 actually.
Exactly. And they've educated their population on what to do when there's an emergency through movies.
Yes.
So it's a very powerful tool for educating people that we are wasting in this country.
Yes.
In fact, when somebody falls down collapses in our mausoleum, they get a taxi, they bundle the person in a taxi, and then they won't say dial 119. An ambulance won't show up and pick up the person and then take the person away. What we expect to happen, we're not modeling it in our movies so that people would then start learning from it. So when people fall ill from the movies they've watched from their childhood, they know that it's a curse. That somebody in the family has cursed them. So their first point of call is not to come to us for help. It's to go and see a pastor, to go and see a herbalist, to go and see somebody to deal with the spiritual problem, because that's what we are teaching people from a very young age. So if we want to change the conversation about mental illness, apart from all of this advocacy that we are doing, I think it's important that we engage with our film industry so that we start making things that speak the truth.
Yes.
Or at least say what we want to say. And start dealing with concepts like depression, like anxiety, start modeling the presenteeism that we don't want to see, the family dynamics that are being destroyed by anxiety, depression, show that things that are very easily treatable, and then the person gets better. Those sorts of narratives need to start finding their way into our media space, into our content, so that people start thinking, oh, this thing I'm going through, if I find somebody shouting at his kid, then he remembers some movie he watched where a father was shouting at his child for no reason, and when he went to see the hospital and got the treatment, talked to the psychologist, he was better. So
I love that you mentioned the impact of the media, and it plays a huge role. For some of the challenges that we face is when we even go to some institutions, advocating for some of these things to be done through media. I mean, because of what we do music, we do media. Especially for Ghanaians, they seem to find it difficult to fathom how is that really going to promote what you're talking about. And I always say that two things that can really, really impact our world today: education and media. And so I'm so happy that we mentioned that. And I think we need to really educate people how we can use these tools to actually promote, mental well-being and any other sort of well-being or any other issue that we face. So, Dr. Marfo, how can we support people with mental health issues today?
Okay. So I think the first thing is understanding that, again, mental health issues are not just an issue of the people with severe mental health who are psychotic. It's you and me.
Yes.
So the first thing is being able to identify when somebody you love or somebody who you know is going through something. It might be more quiet, they might be eating more or less than usual, they might be having disrupted sleep, they might be more irritable than usual, shouting more than you would expect, talking less or talking more than you'd expect. It's being able to identify that these things are going on and the person might be going through something. Really, the first step is just to talk to the person. I can see that you're going through something. I can see that you're looking a bit stressed. What's going on? You need to talk to somebody. Sometimes just talking to somebody alone can make you feel so much better. Can really help you process what you need to process, and that alone, sometimes it's all I do. But some of my patients, they just come like the opportunity to just say it all out, to hear it all out. So that alone might do something. If if that is not enough, that they might need some practical assistance. Like we're talking with the childcare, somebody might need to take their children for a little while just so they can take a break and do something. But it's talking, finding out what's going on, finding out how you can help is the first step. Trying to improve somebody's mental health. If you are a supervisor in a workplace, similar thing. You identify somebody's work performance is dropping. Somebody who used to be always on time at work is now showing up late more often. Your first thing shouldn't need to reach for a query. It should need to talk to the person and find out what's going on. And then offer the person some assistance to deal with the issue that they're going through. So I think it's that approach to each other, the fact that they're dealing with somebody, helping somebody deal with their mental health issues. Now, if you're dealing with more severe mental illness, sometimes what we understand the person themselves might not be aware of the fact that they are unwell. People who are hearing voices, for example, they don't know that the voices are there.
Okay.
So they believe that somebody's speaking. They just can't see the person, which might sound unreasonable to you, but there's a room behind this wall. If there were two people in the room behind this wall talking about you right now, you wouldn't be able to see them, but you'd be able to hear them, and you would know they were there. Now that's just the experience of somebody who's having hallucination. Not everybody that you hear that you see. So imagine you are here and you hear the voice of your sister and your husband plotting to poison you so that she can take your place as his wife. You know full well the voice of your sister. You know full well the voice of your husband. You have no reason to dispute your own ears as to what was said. So when you see your husband the next time, you're acting funny, your husband doesn't know why.
Okay.
You see your sister, you ban your sister from coming to your house again, you don't know why. But it's your lived experience.
Okay.
Sometimes relatives or caregivers don't really fully understand how real the experience is to the person who's suffering from the mental disorder, and the fact that arguing with them doesn't actually help. If you've had this experience yourself and you heard it yourself, why would you trust me over your own ears? You understand what I'm saying? So at a certain point in time, we don't really want people to be arguing with people who are dealing with their illness, unless it's like a life or death situation. But the argument is less likely to make the person more annoyed and make you less likely to reach the person with the things that are important. And for those kinds of illnesses, the most important thing is medication. So if you sabotage your relationship trying to convince them that your husband would never do that because it's that. Now you, the person who could have convinced the individual to take the medication, now you're part of the people who want to kill her so that your sister will take your post. So now who's going through the medication? Meanwhile, as things that you've already left your husband's house. You're not staying with that wasn't actually relevant to your life as it was. Like you, the other person, feel like it's important that you understand that your sister is not like that. And sometimes it's painful to hear some of these allegations that person was not necessary. So you feel an obligation to defend whoever is being this. Yes. In the long run, it's not helpful. That's how people end up getting more and more isolated. So if you go to a common place because you can't be with them, and your cousin start backing you and you think your cousin is part of the conspiracy, and you leave your eventually you run out of people to go to. And then where do you end up? You're not gonna get because you don't have anywhere to go. If you don't have anywhere to go, you don't have anywhere to shout, and you're not dirty. Eventually your clothes wear away, and you end up naked. And there you are on the streets, naked and dirty, just because you heard voices of your sister and your husband conspiring to kill you. And nobody thought that it's not worth arguing about it. Let's take you to the hospital. Let's get you the medication you need. So that understanding that it's not worth arguing, it's a big part of managing these people well. Understanding that the medication needs to take different time to work, it's a big part of managing these people. We're giving them just enough space so they are comfortable, but not so much that they are posing a risk to themselves, and making sure that you maintain a decent relationship so that they can take the treatment they need. And understanding that there's hope. I think that's a big problem. Severe mental illness is like hypertension or diabetes. We call them non-communicable diseases. Most people, I did this thing, I don't know that you have hypertension or diabetes. I would never know. You know, if you have hypertension or diabetes and you're taking your medication, you can live till 100 and nobody will ever really know. But if you don't take your medication, at some point in time, you may have a stroke. You may have an amputated leg. Then you may have kidney disease. And that's when everybody will know that, oh, all this time she had hypertension. The same thing for severe mental illness, things like schizophrenia. There's medication for it. It doesn't cure it, but it manages it. So if people who fell sick would have continued taking their medication, just like the individual hypertension, people would never know that they were dealing with this illness. So the unfortunate thing is that in Ghana, most people don't continue taking their medication once they start. They think of their medication as first aid. So they start when the person gets better, then they go and look for the spiritual cause of the illness, which means they're going to prayers, they're going to this one's playing, they stop taking their medication, which then, of course, leads them to relapse in their condition. And every time you relapse in some of these conditions, you cause damage to your brain. So if you have enough relapses over time, even when you're well, you're a shadow of your former self. You know, your conversation is not that sharp, your reasoning is a bit slow, you know, not like even your speech pattern has changed. Now, Ghana, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So there's this idea that once you fall ill, you know, you know, and it's because this is the pattern of treatment in Ghana. It's not a feature of the illness. If we were a people that maintain treatment over time, this wouldn't be true. But people are afraid to start treatment. People are afraid to continue treatment because they don't believe that it's possible to live a full life with the illness. You know, I have clients who have finished uni, who have been working, who have been married, having children, living full lives when they had severe illness at a fairly young age. But they continue to take their treatment. And then I have clients who have disappeared, and when they're brought back, you can't even recognize the person again. It all depends on how you take your treatment. And the belief that the family had that the person can get well. I have teachers who are now farmers. Because the family don't believe that once you have this illness, you can get back to full functioning. You know, but we need to have that belief that once the person is taking their treatment, they can go back to a normal full life and then we will engage with the treatment in an appropriate way.
What are some of the challenges with supporting mental health patients?
Well, so the challenges, like I said, for the severely ill, a big challenge is that the person doesn't know they're sick. And the person doesn't really see the need to take their medication in all those situations. So for something like hypertension and diabetes, you know that you're the one who's going to suffer the stroke and you're the one who's going to suffer, so you are invested in taking your medication. For some of the illnesses like schizophrenia, the psychotic illnesses, it is the family that suffers the consequences when the person doesn't take their medication. So eventually, he's fine now, he's agitated, he's disturbing you in the house, so you, the family, are going to suffer if he doesn't take the medication, but he doesn't appreciate the fact that you're going to suffer. You know, or he's not going to perceive himself as suffering for doing it. So it makes it a lot more difficult to have the conversations around taking the treatment. You know, and then for the milder forms of illness, is what we're talking about there. Our lives right now are so complicated that finding the space to help somebody get better can be difficult. You know, you live in Kaswa and you work in Cantonment. You know, there's an element of stress in your life. There's an element of stress in your life that I don't know what anybody can really do about you know, living. You know, you also need to have bills to pay. You know, you have 4 kids. You know, school is out at 2, and your job finishes at 5. You know, it's right there. You know, so being the spouse of someone like that, trying to help them manage the stress, it can be difficult because you can't really see a way through to help the individual. But sometimes this is where talking to a professional might be helpful.
You know, with everything that's been said, it comes back to this holistic nature and the structure that needs to be, developed around wellness in general. And I'm thinking, okay, we could do all this campaigning and everything, but the campaigning would tailor towards the fact that each institution and it covers all have to play a role. Because yes, as you mentioned earlier, I can see all the signs. My family could support me. That here it is, I'm really work. And I work demands this hours. What does the workplace to do? What do friends do? What do the government do? What do private organizations do? So in your personal view, how do we bridge that now? To address this reason.
This my mind might not be very useful. This like you're saying, it's a whole national shift. One agency would be very difficult for them to do it.
Yeah.
But I was in Copenhagen for a conference, and I was going for my morning Zoom, and I realized there were so many fathers with their little kids on bicycles, taking their kids to school on a bicycle. Some are doing walks in public parks, or people were walks in public park. There were 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds riding their bicycles to school unattended. And this is community design.
Yes.
The school is at such a distance away that it's possible for the child to go there by themselves.
Yeah.
There are bike lanes provided. There are parks provided. So it's possible for you to ride your bike from point A to point B without worrying that a car is going to kill you or you're going to fall into an open, exposed gutter. The system is designed such that people work near where they live and their children go to school where they live. You don't necessarily have to leave your immediate environment to get basic necessities. Vegetables are not overly expensive, fruits are not overly expensive. So possibly eat healthy without being overly rich or having to travel very far to do it. So I've seen it work. As to how to move from where we are now to where we need to be, that's a much more difficult conversation to have. Because like I said, the fellow at Kaswa was working in cantonments. In an ideal world, his employer might have some flats in cantonments for his staff so that, the staff can commute to work. His children can afford to go to schools in the cantonments area. You can imagine how different the mental health and quality of life is going to be if he can walk to work, if he has time to exercise in the morning even before going to work. If his kids can wake up at 6 instead of 3 in the morning. It's just, but who's going to buy that land in cantonment just to build staff flats that we don't going to charge cantonment rent for? So I mean, I think perhaps the problem is it's getting worse as we are developing rather than better.
Yeah, certainly.
Because if you look at an area like cantonments, they have their own police station. They do have schools around. If you live in cantonments, it's probable that you might work somewhere near cantonments. Your commute is not going to be that bad. Then you look at our newer areas that we are developing, and they don't have police stations. They don't have hospitals. They don't have schools. They're not designed for human habitation. They're just designed for houses.
Yes.
Often houses with not roads. So now you have to negotiate with your neighbor just to get a road to your plot. So the failure to plan has significant mental health consequences and quality of life consequences. So it's difficult to see which thread we start pulling on. But I mean, if we all start thinking about it, then we can start doing something about it. Because, for example, the Kaswa cantonment guy, perhaps does his workday really need to start at 9? Can it start at 11? Can it start at 11? can you work remotely? Like, what solutions can we have for some of these people so that their quality of life isn't so adversely impacted by our national failure to plan? But it's different solutions for different people because a lot of the harm has already been done. But at least we start thinking about it as employers, as individuals. When we're selecting our children's school, perhaps we shouldn't just look at what's the best school, but like what is the best school for your child.
Yes, your child's needs.
Yeah.
Okay. What is in final words on mental health and life in general?
Right. So the most important thing I want people to understand is that mental health and mental well-being goes well beyond severe mental illness. And anybody could be dealing with a significant mental health issue that's affecting our quality of life, the way we are interacting with our families, the way we are productive at work, the way we see ourselves. All of these things are symptoms of mental distress, and we should take these things seriously. If you talk to somebody in your immediate environment, you don't find it helpful, please come into the hospital. We have psychologists, we have psychiatrists who are very ready to talk to you, find out what's going on, and get you back to 100%.
Thank you so much for this very insightful message on mental health. And kudos for the work you're doing. It is fantastic. This is Roberta McAfee Robertson of Global Patriots United, inspiring global change for a more equitable, harmonious, and a sustainable world. Thank you.